Bailey Myers, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on. So, just to get straight in, what's something that you suck at but you have to do regularly and wish you could be better at?
Something I suck at. It really depends who you ask, honestly. But I guess a big issue that I have is struggling to turn off. So I do work across multiple time zones and multiple businesses. So I constantly have my phone on at all hours of the night. So getting a good night's sleep can be a challenge, and just being able to just switch off, relax, watch a TV show can be a challenge, especially for the misses. If I'm constantly answering the phone during movies and TV time as well.
Yeah. So you get a tap on the shoulder from her, do you?
Yeah, just a good tap, switch the phone now.
Fair enough. I know the feeling, mate. I know the feeling. So what's the first job that you ever had, or if you had like a first job as a teenager or as a young fella, and what was the biggest lesson that you took from that?
Yeah, for sure. So my first job was actually bookkeeping. So I used to work at my father's firm, and I did a bit of bookkeeping, which eventually morphed into a management consulting role, and then a bit of client onboarding as well. So I was pretty young when I was doing it, but I think the key thing that I learned there was being able to speak to clients, being able to communicate well and clearly. But the most important aspect I got out of that now in retrospect, looking at it, was the ability to build relationships and how important every relationship you make is. So my first two ever clients are both now investments of mine. So building that network and creating a trusted advisor experience, and it's really the key to kind of creating those lifelong opportunities, really.
Okay, that's good. Um, so moving into one of the businesses that you run, Standard Wine Co. Can you tell us how that idea came about and how it was born initially?
Yeah, sure. So the Standard Wine Co. It's a B2B fine wine importer, and we distribute and sell quality wines into all the major fine dining establishments across the country. So your Crown Casinos, your Lumi Dinings, Rockpool Bar and Grills, hundreds more. Um, so that kind of the idea for that came off another business, which, as I mentioned, was one of my first ever clients. It was called Lario. So it's a nice full circle story, actually. I used to work in on the Lario books, and I saw a huge untapped opportunity in their wine business. It wasn't getting the love it deserved. It wasn't getting the attention it needed. So many years later, I had a chat with the then operations manager, Piero, and we saw the opportunity to kind of go in and put some resources behind it, put some money behind it, and really help grow this business up from the ground, use the existing customer base, and then hope to expand it. Because for us, it's all about reaching scale and reaching a point where we can honestly kind of roll out across Australia. And so that's where the initial idea came from, and it's just kind of bloomed from there.
Okay. And so you said that it's predominantly B2B, is that right?
Yeah, predominantly, yes.
Yeah, okay. And why did you guys choose that rather than like the direct to consumer model, which a lot of others go down?
Yeah, I guess for us, it was that there was already that established customer base and connectivity and network that we had within the B2B space. Also, we're working with a lot of boutique wines and boutique wine providers who don't have much of a brand presence here. So selling it direct to consumer can be challenging to reach the scales that we really want to reach. So going down the B2B route is really our first kind of forte into the business, and hopefully down the road it will be we can kind of go off in different avenues, whether it's B2C or an actual retail store or whatever it ends up being.
Okay. And what would you say that Standard Wine Co's point of difference, or what's something that you guys are doing better than anyone else in the space that you can see?
Yeah, for sure. I guess what we're doing better than anyone else, for me, it's about providing that authentic experience. It's about providing the education behind the wines, and providing that on demand customer service. So for me, and when we first brought on the business, it was really about kind of lowering the mode, or lowering the touch sales model that had previously been within the industry. And that requires a lot of effort, a lot of salespeople on the ground. So we wanted to implement an educational piece through our socials, through our website, and start educating the customer and the end customer about wine itself, and about these beautiful boutique producers. So I guess what we stand out is where we stand out is our portfolio itself and the service that we provide in the education piece. I remember having a great conversation with one of our customers once, and I asked him, why do you love wine so much? And he would say to me, and this is a beautiful little quote, I'm probably getting it a bit wrong, but he used to say to me that the wine itself is a capsule of history. So it encapsulates the region it was produced, the weather patterns that were happening at the time, the land, the producer themselves, and how they were feeling on the day. And so opening that bottle of wine, there's so much history and information to be told. And for us, it's about kind of passing that on from the producer onto the consumer through kind of the restaurants and teaching the restaurants about the wine itself. So I'd say that's our kind of biggest standing point, and obviously the customer service, next day deliveries, and having a reliable platform on which we can take orders.
And how do you guys find or source those wine producers? Like, what's your process there?
Yeah, for sure. So it comes from a lot of the connectivity of our founders. So Piero's father actually owns a vineyard, and he's one of our producers in Italy. Piero is Italian by background, so we have a lot of Italian producers who we just know through the network, and we've kind of grown those relationships up. We visit the producers often, a couple of times a year, and constantly looking to find more and searching around Europe for the best producers we can find. And yeah, it's really about kind of creating those relationships within the industry. It's a pretty tight-knit industry as well. So you usually get a recommendation from someone and a point of contact as well. So for us, it's about really building up who we are so that we can show that we're ready to take their brands international.
Yeah. And do you guys, like, how does the buying process work? I mean, you might not be able to go into the absolute specifics, but is it like you'll buy an X amount? Is it like a minimum, or how does that whole process work within the wine industry? I've always been intrigued as to, when someone's coming and buying, do they have to buy 2 pallets, or, how does it work?
Yeah, for sure. It really changes from supplier to supplier. Obviously, you need to have a relationship with them in the first place, and a lot of the suppliers, the boutique ones, often have a limit of the amount of wines you can buy because they're obviously selling it globally and they only produce so many bottles a year. But they usually kind of tell you how much you have after they've harvested the grapes and after they've created the wines. And you'll purchase, there's usually a minimum order, yes, and usually you want to kind of hit that minimum order because shipping is extremely expensive. And yeah, they'll ship it to you. It usually takes 90 days for the stock to arrive from the bottling process. And yeah, we get it into our warehouse and it's good to go.
Nice. And how have you found the whole COVID and lockdowns and supply chain issues over the past 18, 24 months? Has that really affected you guys?
Yeah, I think it's affected everyone really, but for us, it's been a challenge in terms of just timing the logistics. I'd say the biggest issue for us is it takes a long time for the wine to get here, anyways, and with all the delays in place at the moment, it's not making it easier. But for us, the way we're getting around it is we've implemented an app recently, which pretty much takes into account our stock management system, and it uses a formula to work out how long that stock has taken to arrive historically, how quickly we're selling those wines, and it spits out kind of the amount of days until we need to next order that specific bottle of wine. So that kind of allows us to track and model our sales process and kind of when we need our procurement process as well, which has really helped us overcome that logistics issue. But still, the rising cost of shipping and the rising cost of freight has definitely dug into our margins a little bit, but you always need to take account for rising costs in your margins and unit economics.
Yeah, have you guys had to pass that on to the restaurants and your customers, or is it just you sort of take that on the chin?
It depends on the bottle, I guess. For the cheaper bottles, a couple of them have had slight price increases, but for the most time, we're pretty happy to cop it. It's just short term. We're hoping in the meantime. So I think we've built some leeway into our models, so we don't have to constantly increase our prices for increased logistics costs. But there comes a point where you need to start increasing them, and we're hoping it doesn't get to that.
Have you found the restaurant industry sort of bounced back since everything's opened up again? Like, has it gone back to pre-COVID levels, or how are you guys finding that in terms of how many bottles you're selling at a restaurant level?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the location. It depends on the state you're in. So we sell across Australia, and we found that Perth has actually been quite slow to move and quite slow to pick up because they're only kind of just finishing off the wave that they were going through now. Queensland and New South Wales, we've noticed have bounced back immediately, if not better than they were before, because everyone's ready to go out, ready to go drinking, ready to continue their lives and living their lives. So I'd say it's been extremely positive, and we've seen huge uplifts in sales recently, even though August and July are usually the slowest months because it's cold, it's wintry, people are tending to stay home. But I've noticed that the industry, if you try, it's quite difficult to get a restaurant booking in Sydney at least. So I think that looks positive for the outlook.
Yeah, I think everyone's desperate to get out there and have a drink and have a feed again after being locked away for so long.
Exactly.
I definitely know I was anyway. But
Oh, for sure. I was sick of drinking at home.
Yeah, so it gets a bit depressing when you're just sitting there, drink after drink. But yeah, anyway, it's good that everything's opened again, 100%. So the wine industry, there's obviously it's a massive industry, right? So there'd be a few common myths that are bandied about. What would be like the biggest one that you debunk when you're speaking to people?
Yeah, so you're dead spot on. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about wine itself, which is the major issue about the industry as well. So you have your basic ones, like corked wine is always going to be better quality than screw cap wine. And this is a huge point of debate for the industry, and people get into it for hours on end chatting about this. I've had multiple conversations about this. The key thing is that with corked wine, it does allow for certain amounts of oxidation, which is really good for the aging process for kind of those wines that you want to age well. But studies have shown that there's no huge amount of difference between cork and screw cap. For us, we import a lot of corked wine, and that can often become problematic for us because in transit, a cork can easily pop out, which will cause a huge amount of wastage if it's overheated, the bottle's overheated, or whatever it is. So for me, I much prefer just from as an importer screw capped wine, but I guess there's a tradition with the cork as the better quality, and there's a lot of ideas about that as well. But everyone has a different idea. So then there's other ones like all wines are better with age, but that's definitely not the case. You have wines which, and I've spoken to producers where they want it to be drunk within the year of production. So that's a common myth. And then the biggest one, which I have and which I speak to my friends about, is you'll go to a restaurant and you'll go, oh, the $300, $400, $500 bottle of wine, that's definitely going to be the best wine on the list if they don't know anything. So they just go by price. But high price does not always mean the best wine. So wine, just like any other commodity, is valued and priced with the forces of supply and demand. So often the most expensive bottles on that wine list aren't leaps and bounds better than a slightly cheaper one. But it could have just been that producer has great brand image, an exclusive region, and very limited supply. So that's why for us it's so important that we find those boutique producers who are actually creating high quality products with high quality processes and the best practice possible, and those ones which are underrepresented in Australia that you can actually price at a reasonable level.
Do you guys at Standard Wine Co, do you have a certain price range that you work within, or do you go up and down the wine list?
Yeah, for sure. We're slightly higher end. So we don't go sell into pubs and bars at the moment. It's mainly higher end restaurants. So the LUC or landed unit cost is usually above the $60 mark, but we're slowly bringing in and separating out wine portfolios as well so that we can kind of provide something which is more accessible to other individuals and other businesses as well. Our wines go up to the $1,000 mark, so it really depends on the bottle of wine, but we cover a pretty large range of prices. We have about 24 producers at the moment and about 100 to 130 different products. So we've got a fair amount of products which come in at very different price ranges.
Okay. And this might be a little bit cheeky, but are you able to share with the listeners what's the standard markup on a bottle of wine in a restaurant?
Yeah, so I mean, it is a bit of a trade secret, but sharing with the listeners, there's often quite decent markups, especially for us, we don't take a huge margin on our products, given that we have to take into account shipping, excise duty, etc. So we work on high volume, low margin, but for the restaurants, because they have to have the liquor licenses and they're not selling through as much wine, they're sitting on a lot of wine. Often their margins or markups, they can be anything from 50% to 200%. Honestly, it really depends on the restaurant you're going to, and the bottle of wine itself as well.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. 50 to 200. I always thought,
Yeah, it
50
really varies in restaurant to restaurant. You can find the same bottle of wine quite a lot cheaper at a lower priced restaurant than you will at a high end restaurant, which is not doing as many bottles.
Yeah. So you're saying investigate or research the menu before you go if you're trying to save $1.
It may be worthwhile, or just drink at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do that. Go out and support local restaurants.
Yeah. What would you say Standard Wine Co.'s biggest failure or learning curve has been since you guys started the business?
Yeah. Biggest failure or learning curve. I don't think we've had any major failures along the way. I think our biggest learning curve was obviously working out our unit economics, as I mentioned, taking into account the higher cost of doing business in this economic climate. But I think for us as well, as I touched on, was the idea that for cash flow, it becomes quite problematic in this industry when you're paying up front for your goods, or you're paying on 30 days and it takes 90 days for the product to get there, and then takes another 90 days for you to sell the product and another 45 days for you to get the cash for the product. So the time from cash outlay to cash received is quite elongated. So ensuring that we've correctly set up our cash flow and have enough to support purchases and continue to provide to bring in and procure decent amounts of stock has been super important for us, so that we don't lose customers or churn customers from not having the correct amounts of stock in or not having the products that they want. So for us, as I said, we've implemented that app and system, and we use a lot of stock management systems and tech in the back end to do all our tracking in our warehouse and understand where we're at. And then it's been on me a little bit to manage the financial side of things in terms of ensuring that cash flow is strong, margins are strong, and that we can be a growing, thriving business with strong unit economics.
So big on the numbers.
I guess so. I think in the industry, a lot of people go, "Oh, I love wine. Wine seems like such an exciting business. You're selling a product." But at the end of the day, just like in any other business, you need to make sure that your pricing's right, that you've got your cash flow under control, and that your forecasting is correct in terms of the product that you need to get in and what your expenses are at the bottom line.
And do you find that just from working in the industry for a couple of years, and obviously your knowledge prior to moving into the industry, do you find that a lot of people go into it just because they like wine and it's a passion rather than actually having that expertise?
Yeah, I actually watched an interesting TV series the other day where it was fictional, but this lady quits her job as a psychologist, and she's big on her wine drinking and loves to get drunk, and so she decides to open a wine store. And I just thought that must be so many people who would just love the product, love the idea of it, but have no idea what they're doing, no connections to suppliers. So I think there's definitely people who do that. But I think in this industry, it's all about your connectivity, your network, how well you know the wines. Like all of our individuals on board at the moment are sommeliers, and they have their certifications, understand the wines, can explain the wines. And I think if you can't do that, you're lacking a level of authenticity, and people and your customers can see right through that, and you're not going to be bringing in the best product. So it's really about just having the experience, having the understanding of the industry, and that's what's really going to differentiate you in the space.
Well, there you go. If anyone's thinking of starting a wine business,
it's tough.
Don't just do it because you like drinking it.
Just get a wine fridge at home. It's much easier.
Yeah. So for someone who doesn't know much about European wines, or especially Italian wines, what would you say would be a good wine for me to start on if I was wanting to dabble in the Italian wines?
Sure. Are you a kind of a deeper, darker red, or a lighter type individual? What's your preference?
I definitely prefer the bigger, bold reds. Originally from Adelaide, and obviously having access to Clear Valley and Barossa Valley as growing up, that was the wines that we drank regularly.
For sure. So I guess the recommendation there would be something which is broad and complex. You're looking at we have a producer based in Puglia, which is on the hill of Italy. If you're looking at the map, Gianfranco Fino produce a terrific bottle of wine called the S. Lovely bottle, slightly higher end. Great notes of black cherry and kind of small wild red fruits. But what I love about it is you can taste the flavor. It's delicious. It's sweet, and it's probably reflects the nice kind of South Australian wines that you would be used to. But if you're kind of starting off and you're not into your deep dark reds, starting with something like a Pinot Nero, which is a Pinot Noir equivalent, is always a good place to start if you're looking for something light or easy on the palate.
Nice. Well, I'll definitely take those recommendations into account, and next time I'm at the store, I'll have a look for sure. Ah, thanks, mate. That'd be amazing. So, do you guys procure them from any specific regions in Italy, or is it just depending on the quality of the boutique
Yeah,
wine?
so I guess you get different flavors and different grapes from around Italy, and there's a lot of politics around it as well. What grapes should be produced in what region? So your Barolos, for example, come from the Piemonte region, which is slightly up north, and so that's where those type of wines are produced through the grapes over there. Um, but yeah, we source from all over Italy, and we're looking to expand across other parts of Europe as well. We currently sell a champagne line as well, which is called Lallier, which is owned by Campari. So we're in a great partnership with them at the moment to sell this absolutely terrific champagne. But yeah, I mean, for us, we're not constricted by location or region. We want to try to represent all across Italy and all across Europe. So for us, it's just about finding the best producer within each kind of wine region.
Yeah, nice. What's the North Star, or what's like the goal for Standard Wine Co over the next few years? Is there like a big goal that you guys want to hit, or is it just continuing to get the word out there and spreading good wines across Australia?
Yeah, I guess for us it's just expansion, expansion, expansion. We started off in New South Wales. We've already expanded across to Perth, down to Melbourne, and we're now heading up to Queensland. So, and we've got some sales in Tasmania as well. So for us, it's getting our footprint across Australia and then hopefully in New Zealand as well. Although they have a pretty strong wine game themselves, but it's hitting major revenue targets. Building out the team is super important for us. So bringing on individuals who share the vision, who share our ideology and who understand wine. We want to be the number one importer of European wines into Australia, or of boutique wines, really. We want to be that go to business, which all the major restaurants and major restaurant groups go to, knowing that we sell the absolute very best of product available.
Okay, awesome. So maybe changing flavors for a bit. So that the other half of your life is deep into investing, and you're currently a partner and general manager at Halkin Ventures. So can you tell us what Halkin Ventures does and sort of the goal there?
Yeah, for sure. So Halkin Ventures is obviously a very big part of my life. We started it about 5 years ago. Been going strong ever since. So Halkin Ventures is pretty much a syndicate of angel investors that provide capital and expertise in order to enable our investments to scale to their full potential. So our model works a little bit that we provide the capital and the C-suites, so individuals from our team with experience in the particular area that that investment is looking for, and we take care of the financial side of the business in order to allow the founders of our investments to really scale, focus on their operations, and grow their business to their full potential. So in terms of kind of our investments themselves, they're pretty industry agnostic. So we have investments currently which range from facial recognition to fashion showrooms, from virtual reality learning platforms to AI damage detection to Uberization of goods movement. So the key similarity across all of those investments is that we are able to make a difference and be that trusted advisor, investor, and partner for these businesses.
Yeah, nice. And what would you say as a someone who's investing in businesses? What's like the top couple of things that you look for when someone's pitching to you?
For sure. So founder expertise is a super important one. You're putting your money and your trust in the founder, the person who's backing this idea. So you want to know that they have the experience, the skills, and the capabilities to, and also the charisma to go out, raise capital, to bring on the very best of people in terms of employees. You want the whole business to believe in their vision, and you want to believe in their vision as well. In terms of product, you want to make sure that there's a product market fit. So ensuring that there is actually a demand for the product that they're selling. It may be a lovely idea, but no one else really sees the issue for it, or the market is just too niche to access. And then you want to be looking at things like your unit economics, and and does the business model actually make sense, or is this just going to be one of those hyper growth investments which eventually fails when it runs out of funding? So all those are kind of like the key factors you want to be looking at, and those are the kind of initial screening processes you have. And you have all kinds of other ones, like can you make a difference? Can you actually impact this investment for the better? Can you provide your skills and expertise to this founder, and are they going to take that on? Do they have an exit plan? Do they have a strategy to get out of that business or to make you money? And what's their expansion plan? What's their growth plan? Is it scalable? Or are you going to get stuck at a point where it's just you need to bring on too many resources to actually grow this business? So again, it's about looking at those key metrics, your cost of customer acquisition, how low touch the business is, and then looking at things like the industry. Is it a hot industry right now, or is it overcrowded? So I guess that it's my job, and there's a lot to go into, and I could talk about it for absolutely hours, but those are the kind of the key main points when you're looking at a pitch deck or you're hearing that initial pitch, that you want to know that they've got the answers to that.
It's good to know, just in case PicUp does seek funding in the future. Got someone to speak to. What are some? Can you name a few of the businesses that you guys have invested in recently that have sort of taken off?
Yeah, for sure. So OCI obviously was one of our initial investments, which is a facial recognition technology, and they do the identity verification using Face and ID. So that's taken off, and they're across all the major banks, and they're starting to scale to their Series B even. And so that's been a super successful one of ours. We've just recently invested in a virtual reality learning platform in the UK called Metaverse Learning. And they've just raised at 5 times what we put in, which was a really great outcome for us. And it was great that we believed in the founders because their product is terrific. It's pretty much a virtual reality tool or online learning tool, which is accredited, which allows plumbers, childcare workers, nurses, etc. And they've got about 20 different courses on there to learn online using kind of a VR learning platform. So their tech is great, and we absolutely love the team. And we've got a bunch of other ones as well. We've got fashion showrooms, which have done terrifically well, Franklin Street Fashion Showroom. And yeah, they're constantly hitting goals, and we're very impressed by it. All of our investments really have just done a great job. And it really shows that the business model of providing this guidance to these investments and putting a team around them really, really is the arbitrage in the deal for us.
So do you guys specifically, is it just capital? Is it expertise? Is it labor? Like where do you guys, I suppose, see your biggest benefit that you're bringing to founders and businesses?
For sure.
Is
So I
it a
think
combination of everything?
Yeah, it's a bit of a combination of everything. It's the fact that we're pretty agile and we can apply the right person from our team to the issue that the startup is having. So, for example, if you're going into scale up mode and you wanted someone to help out on the growth and hiring strategy, we have one of our partners is ex-Google and has a lot of expertise in that area. So we apply him to that startup for a prolonged period of time to help them with their growth strategy. If you were an earlier stage startup and starting to put together your business plan and your initial go-to-market strategy and working through the financial aspects, such as your unit economics or your making sure that your margins were right, I'd probably go on to that and make sure that everything was good and up and running and give some comfort around the founders. So I think for us, the success comes from the ability to apply the right individual to the right problem, provide that capital. But for us, the key is becoming that trusted advisor, because you can have all these investors who want to kind of have an impact, but the founder doesn't listen or doesn't trust them or doesn't really understand what value they're bringing. So for us, it's about partnering up rather than just being an investor, not having onerous terms in the term sheets, and really showing that we are there to help them and assist them in whatever way we can to help them achieve their goals and push them to a point of serious growth.
Yeah, nice. It's good to know, mate. The metaverse one is interesting. Just hearing you talking about it then, it's something that we could potentially use at PicUp in as we go through our growth phase for training and development of, onboarding of drivers. It's something that's just sprung to mind immediately. So might have to link us up with the metaverse guys.
Definitely. They're constantly creating new programs, so you can get them to create a driver training program, and I'm sure that they'd be more than happy to assist.
Yeah, absolutely. So who would be the 2 or maybe one smartest person and why, and sort of how have they helped you mold yourself as the business person that you are now?
Yeah, so it's hard to think of one or two of the smartest people I know. I'm surrounded by extremely intelligent individuals. I'd say the person who molded me the most in terms of, and with their intellect, they probably are the smartest person I know, is my father. I learned from him from the age that I was 16. I was kind of shadowing him in meetings and learning all the tricks of the trade. The way that he can handle a room and negotiation was just, it impressed the living hell out of me, and I think it inspired me to do what I do today. I get to work alongside him every day as well, which is absolutely terrific. So he's probably one of the smartest individuals I know, and his skills and ability to understand every aspect across a business from a tiny little startup to an absolute massive conglomerate has just constantly impressed me. But yeah, in this industry, there's so many talented minds. So they're able to apply their individual area of expertise in meaningful ways. So everyone across my team, everyone that I work with, the founders that we back, they're all extremely intelligent, and that's why we're in the same we're on the same side, because I want to have them on the team.
Yeah, what do they say? It's you become the 5 people that you surround yourself with, or something
exactly.
like that.
You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
So I guess that's exactly it. And you put around the people who are smart and who you can learn from. I never want to be the smartest person in the room, because then I'm not learning. You always want to have individuals in there who can teach you something or teach you a different way of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, top online tool or resource. Obviously, you can't have a relationship with every person that you'd like to. So, is there something like online resources that you use to educate yourself with?
Yeah, top online tool or resource. I guess it's hard to pick because we're across so many platforms. I love that Atlassian products like your Trellos and your Jiras, because for me, I'm an extremely disorganized person, and for me, it's all about ensuring that we're all across the same page and organized and collaborated within the organization. So having a tool like a Trello where you can kind of set out your processes correctly and have different people provide feedback on different possible investment opportunities or potential customers coming on. So it's been a great tracking tool for us to use something like that. And it gets the whole process kind of mapped out in your head on this online tool. So it also just becomes a simple tool for like lead tracking, information sharing, and the UX just makes it super easy for anyone to use. So I can get some of our investors who are maybe slightly older who don't like using tech onto it with no real issues. So I think those are kind of my top online resources and tools. Slack obviously is a great tool to use, but there's so many going around.
Yeah, we use Trello at PicUp, and I have to agree, it makes communication with everyone amazing. So
yeah, and the little butler tools they have where you can drop and play with cards and put them in different spreadsheet or different Trello boards, and it just makes life so easy, so simple, and allows for no information to really be stuck or drop down the cracks.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I heard you say just before that you think you're a completely disorganized person. So is there anything that you use or utilize to try and improve your productivity?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a few little productivity hacks which I've had to learn over the years. Obviously, having a to-do list. It used to be a pen and paper, and now it's a Microsoft to-do list with where I put the due dates for all of the things that I need to get done. That helps me track and compartmentalize all the different items that I have floating around my head every day. But my biggest productivity hack, and a lot of people will probably agree with me on this one, is that when I first came into the business, everyone likes to have 1-2 hour meetings, and often nothing really important ever gets said in that. So I like to set my meetings at, if it's meant to be an hour, I'll put it at 45 minutes. If it's meant to be 30 minutes, I'll put it at 15 minutes. And that just kind of allows you to have so many more hours in the day. It allows the meetings to be more efficient. You can still have that small talk at the beginning of the meeting, but it means that people are time rushed, so they're trying to get through the meeting as quick as possible, and you're not missing anything by taking off that 15-minute booking. It's just giving you that extra hour or two at the end of the day to actually get stuff done rather than just constantly talk about it. So definitely meeting bookings is the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, it's kind of like setting a deadline. If you set a deadline, it forces you to get it done in that time period.
That's exactly it. And exactly. So I remember back in the day in uni, you'd have your assignments due, and you'd only ever do it on the last day or the day right before it was due, because that's when it was due. So it's about having that deadline, knowing that this has to be done by this point in time, which actually encourages you to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, meetings are definitely a big time suck in any business, and just coming from the corporate world, coming into trying to build a startup, you realize how pointless so many of those meetings were, and they could have just been an email or they could have been condensed into 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was you who said to me, a good email can take into account a 2-hour meeting. So like, if you can just construct an email well, get all the right people onto it, and ensure that everyone's across it, it's often just better and easier and much less of a waste of time.
Yeah, and there's other awesome tools. One that I've found recently, I'm not sure if you use it, it's called Loom. It's a video tool. So if you need to show someone how to do something, you just record it, send it to them. Rather than having that hour meeting showing them, you just record the meeting. And if they need to ask you any questions, just there you go.
Oh, that's brilliant. I definitely need to get around that.
Yeah, highly recommend. So we'll close up in the next couple of minutes, mate. But one question I always like to ask people is there any books that you would recommend for people to read and why?
Yeah, so I used to be a big reader, not so much anymore. Don't really have as much time. I'd love to get back into it. I guess the best books, especially for the industry that I work in, would have to be 0 to 1. So that was a book Peter Thiel wrote. He was PayPal, and he wrote about what it takes to be that startup or founder who changes the world, the thinking which needs to go into it, the visionary thinking to think beyond what we live in and have today and revolutionize the way things are done. So I thought that was always an interesting book, which every founder definitely should read, and investors as well, to understand that kind of founder process of not going from 0 to 1 rather than 1 to many. So having that book as kind of a starting tool for any founder to understand the thinking that must be done to change the world or actually revolutionize the way something's done. Unbelievable book. Another one that I really liked is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, which talks about the entrepreneurial myth, what it takes to have a system run a business rather than the individuals within the business actually just being required in that business every day doing the medial tasks. So really setting up, it's about how to set up your business best. It gives real life examples. Absolutely terrific book. He's a great author. I mean, I got the chance to meet him when I was in the US, and we talked through all kinds of things while we were over there, which was unbelievable. And he was a great educator for me. And yeah, he's written a whole bunch of books, so I definitely recommend getting around all of his books, The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth, and all of his books. Just that they were written 20, 30 years ago, and they still have so much relevance today in terms of how to structure your business going forward and how to get the most efficiency out of your business by knowing who you are as a manager and who you are as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, the process thing's a tough one, especially at a startup. It's, do you allocate your time to putting together a process that will pay dividends in the future, or do you do something that can pay dividends today? It's like you got that constant balance of, which is the best approach.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about like setting up the system to run the business, because if you don't, you get stuck in the business yourself. Even as a founder or an owner of a business, you get stuck doing every single task, and you aren't able to pass it on to a new employee because you're the person who has to do it. So setting up your business structure so that when you bring on new employees, you can hand off responsibilities and delegate and have the business actually run itself, even if you were to go on holidays for a couple of weeks. It's the biggest thing I took from that book. It's just about setting that up so you're good to go.
Awesome. I'll definitely add those two to the list for sure. Well, thanks for that. So last couple of questions. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I'd love to know what's next for PicUp. And obviously in this economic climate and the changing spending patterns of individuals as well, how are PicUp pivoting their model for future success, and what are the key next steps for PicUp as a business?
So for us, I think at the moment we're currently rebuilding our tech stack. So we're putting together a product that will be best in market for this type of service that we offer. So we're competing against, the traditional removalists, traditional junk removalists, traditional courier companies, and none of them really have a decent digital product that they can use for their customers. So I think once we bring that to market, it's really going to separate ourselves and give us the opportunity to carve out really targeted niche where hopefully, and I mean, this is where I want the business to go, for us to be across every major city and town in Australia as the on-demand delivery partner of choice for customers and retailers.
Awesome. No, it sounds amazing. I'm very excited to see what PicUp has planned for the future. Very, very exciting.
Me too, mate. So last question, where can people find you or your companies online?
For sure. So I'm best accessed through LinkedIn. So Bailey Myers on LinkedIn. And then websites for Stand Wine if you're looking to buy a bottle of wine, standwineco.com. And then for Halkin Ventures, it's halkinventures.com. So if you're listening, interested, have an interesting startup, or you love your wine, reach out to me, and I'll sort you out.
There you go, listeners. Slide into his DMs and he might reply.
Definitely.
Well, thank you, Bailey, and thank you for helping us level up.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Cheers, mate.